things. So, and that wouldn't have been possible if all these doors hadn't opened up. We've been able to. Every one of these neurosurgeons that we've seen, they've said it'll be 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or keep your fingers crossed. Maybe you can get in, and like within hours, they call and say we've got an appointment day after tomorrow. I mean, it's happened over and over and over again. He's even got a CT scan this Wednesday, which again they had said to us when we had to go see this stroke neurosurgeon this week, and she said he's scheduled for appointment from 3 weeks because they're probably going to downgrade his meds. That's how good he's doing. But she said you've got to have this CT scan before this appointment, and she basically said good luck trying to find one. I remember when I had one a few months ago, it was a whole thing about, I don't know why it's so hard to get in for these. But anyway, she said, you may have to go to Buford or someplace like that. And we said, okay, that's fine. Just, whatever. She said, call first thing in the morning and get the ball rolling. He called first thing, and they said, oh, we got one Wednesday at Emory, which is where we wanted to go, where her office is. So just when you are grateful for things that have happened and you sort of energize them by praising them, you attract more and more things coming to you. That's why it's important to notice, and I may say something about this in my teaching, but when I've talked to my cousin-in-law Hannah a lot through this whole thing, because she's sent me a lot of information and we've communicated. And sometimes I'll preface something with, this is a small thing that happened, and she said, can I just correct you? She said, there's no small things. Everything that happens. And I said, you know what? You're exactly right. You're totally right. So I don't even categorize things as small things or big things. Everything that happens is conducive to, the flow. So, and again, I'll talk more about that in my teaching today. But if you don't know the person you're standing next to, in front of, or behind, please introduce yourself. Y'all come on in. Your colleague is here. Hey, buddy. Huh? Yes, I saw. Well, I saw. I knew her from somewhere. Tell me her name again. Therese. Hey, Valerie. I'm so glad to see you. You want a chair? Let me bring you a chair down.
No, I'm good. I just can't walk up steps.
I don't mind bringing you. You want to sit next to Beth? Valerie, there's one by Gloria too. Why don't you come over here? We're so glad. I haven't seen Valerie in a minute, so I'm glad to see her. I've kept in touch with her, but huh? Yes. No, you can't sit down until I say you can sit down. I didn't say nothing about sitting down. Yes, I'm glad to see Valerie. We haven't seen her in a minute, but she supports, and we always know she's with us. So we're glad you. All right, Spirit of God, we're so grateful to be here today, one mind and one accord. We're grateful that we're alive. We're grateful for all of our blessings. We're grateful for this space that we have to come in today and just celebrate our spirituality and praise God and love God in our own way without being dictated to how we should or shouldn't do it. We never take that freedom for granted. And I speak a blessing on everyone who's watching today or listening to this podcast, but especially those that made the effort to be here today. I think there's a special blessing on them. We thank you for it. Amen. Please remain standing. Let's do the Lord's Prayer. And then you can sit down, Rhonda. Our Father who art in heaven, presence of divine love and light that lives within us and within all of life. Hallowed be thy name. We invoke the powerful creative nature of all that is sacred and holy. Thy kingdom come. We embrace the healing essence that is the kingdom of heaven within us. Thy will be done. We accept our greatest good as we align with our divine nature, on earth as it is in heaven. knowing that the affairs of our lives reflect our evolving consciousness. Give us this day our daily bread. Each day we receive great blessings from within and throughout all the activities of our lives. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We accept the divine nature of all things and all people, including ourselves, as we move away from judgment and toward greater awareness of divine presence. And lead us not into temptation. We shall be vigilant in expressing and experiencing the oneness with all life. But deliver us from evil, as we are learning to live without fault-finding and suffering. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. For we accept the consciousness of divine perfection with all its power and glory right here, right now, and forever. Amen, and so it is. Tell the person next to you there's nobody I'd rather sit next to than you today, and I mean it this time. And then you may be seated. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here last week. These guys just got back from Portugal, and so I'm glad that they're here today. And last Sunday was amazing. It just I don't remember a day ever being more special than that, and there's a lot going on. I'm gonna say a little bit about healing toward the end. I'm actually, if I don't talk too long, I'm actually gonna anoint people with oil if they want to be healed today, because I'm kind of in a healing mindset, and I have a lot of overflow in my own life. And then, interestingly, I don't know if you've updated with them, but you know the man at the Cherokee Reservation that did the dance for. He led the dance for Ken's recovery. He had his own situation where he had to be life flighted and had a quadruple bypass, I believe. And it just happened because where they are on the reservation is very remote, part of Oklahoma. There just happened to be a helicopter that was there available that got him there. He got through it. He's fine. What I messaged that thing that I posted the day before yesterday where I put my hand up, that's what that was. And I don't remember anything I've ever posted that got more response or quicker than that. And people started telling me testimonies of healing. And I said, initially that was for him. I said that to his wife. I said, you guys just sent a whole lot of healing energy to us, and it worked. And so we're reflecting that back to you. And what I actually said is you've banked a lot of good karma. You've sent some out. And it's just interesting because even I think the next day, Doug Wentz, he filmed a little prophecy for me and just sent it in my messenger, and he kept using the word circular. He said every word that's coming to you is circling inside you and going out to other people. And it was just, I don't know, there's just a lot of flow right now. So which direction would Oklahoma be from here? That way? Does that feel like west? That's west. We just send the healing power of God to where this gentleman is, who's been such a unselfish healer in his own right. I send the word to Tracy's husband right now that everything they've sent out is multiplied back to them. And as they have sown to the wind, they reap the whirlwind in a good way. And there's a positive avalanche that his best years are ahead of him, his best days are ahead of him, and of both of them. We call it done. Amen. But there's a lot of healing going on right now. And as I was saying earlier about my cousin, who interestingly, in lots of conversations I've had with her during the time we were in Daytona, when I had gone online and talked about the, I believe, angel that I encountered on the elevator there, who was in scrubs, medical scrubs, she told me, and if I knew this, I had forgotten it. Some time ago, about a year or so ago, she was in the hospital and nearly died. She got sepsis, and her blood pressure plummeted, and they didn't think she was going to make it. And she said, I remember there was a man that walked into my room. He had scrubs on. She said he looked like an Indian man. He was kind of a brown skin. And she said, he's in the middle of everybody working on me. He spoke to me and he said, Miss Harris, you have to believe. And she said, okay. He said, no, I'm telling you, these doctors can do all of this stuff for you, but you have to believe. And he left the room. She said, I never saw him again. I don't know where he came from. She said, I have no doubt that was an angel. And so there's a lot of that going on. And she's the one that said to me, stop saying this is a small thing. There's no small things. Like even yesterday, and I'm not going to say this is a small thing, but, you know, we've been gradually doing things for Ken. You know, this week I said, you need to drive. I want to see you drive some before you get on the expressway and go back to work. But we hadn't done the expressway yet. And so we did that, was it Friday, I think? I said, why don't we there's a restaurant we love up on West Paces Ferry called the OK Cafe. And I know they used to have a rebel flag there. They took it down a long time ago, so don't write me about the rebel flag. That's a whole other thing. That happened before I ever ate there. But it's a good place to get a vegetable plate. You can't get vegetable plates a lot of places. And I said, why don't we go up to OK Cafe, and that'll give you a chance to drive on the expressway and see how you do. And so this is one of those restaurants where they have a lot of vegetable, but there's also a vegetable of the day. So when you get there, they'll tell you the soup of the day is so-and-so, the vegetable of the day is so. Well, his favorite thing is lady peas. He loves lady peas, and his mom used to make them, and it's a thing with him. And it's like once in a blue moon they have them on the menu there. Like every time, we don't go that often, but every time we go, he'll always say, I hope they have lady peas today. And they never do. It's Brussels sprouts or something else. Well, we went there Friday, and the first thing she walked up to the table and she said, the vegetable of the day is lady peas. I said, see, I'm telling you, we're in the zone. I'm going to take it. This is the way I think it is about learning to get with the flow. It's like you notice everything around you. You become aware, and you start collecting every little synchronicity, every little confirmation, every good word. Even something as simple as, and I don't even know what to make of this, but in the last few days, I don't know if premonition is the word, but I just know something's going to happen before it happens. It's just happened a lot in the last few days. And even the day we left meeting with the stroke neurosurgeon, we hadn't eaten all day, and I said, because we're trying to find new places to eat, because there's some things he can't have anymore. So I'm like, no, we can't go there. He said, they got fish there. I said, they have fried fish there, and you can't have that. So I said, there's a place, come on in. There's a place that we got. We don't even go, it's not even one of our, come in. It's not even one of our regular haunts. But I said, you know what, why don't we, this is on Tuesday of last week. I said, why don't we go to Highland Tap? It's a place over there. I think I ate there with y'all one time. It's there, Virginia Highland. So why don't we go to Highland Tap? And they've got a pretty, standard menu. So we did. We went there and ate. And as soon as we sat down, I said, we're going to eat here tomorrow night. And he said, what do you mean? I said, this is where Jared's going to want to go for his birthday. And he said, how do you know? I said, I don't know. I just know he's going to. Because I meet with my boys every Wednesday night. We have a thread where I say, where do y'all want to go tonight? So Jared's birthday was Thursday, which, by the way, he closed on his house Friday. I think he lives on the same street as y'all, right? Is it 3 doors down? He didn't know which one it was. Yeah, I messaged him. I had to take Mom by her house yesterday, and I messaged him. I said, just giving you a heads up, I'm bringing Mom by the house. I didn't want to surprise him. He said, that's great. I'm not there. I'm at my new house working. I said, oh, scared of you? Okay. Works for me. You knock on those doors. Let the Lord use you. But anyway, so I text everybody. I said, since Jared's birthday's tomorrow, let him choose the place. So he texts back and he says, I don't know. I was thinking of lots of exotic places to go. He said, but you know where I'd like to go? Why don't we just go to Highland Tap? And I said, I knew you were going to say that. I don't know how I knew that. It's not even one of our regular places. I just knew he was going to say it. And interestingly, and this is what happens when you get in the zone. Jonah's birthday was last Sunday. All three of my boys' birthdays are in August. Judah's will be the 31st. But Jonah's is the 4th, and Jared's is the 8th. And so we were going to celebrate Jonah's and Jared's birthday. As a matter of fact, if you got a picture of my cover photo, yeah, that was them. They're 10 years apart, so that's their birthdays. So when we got there, the waiter, who's like just a big, kind of heavy-set, hippie-ish kind of good old boy, straight guy, but I was joking with him. So when I said, I said, this will be on one check. And I said, we're celebrating 2 birthdays tonight. I said, we'd like for you to sing and dance if you could. So he made a joke because I left my G-string at home. I said, well, go get it. And because this is a guy you would not want to see dancing a G-string. That's what made it so funny. So during the meal, every time he would come out, we were joking with. He was a jovial kind of guy like that. So what we always do on birthdays is we go around the table and everybody says like a word of edification to somebody. So we had done it for Jonah, and then we were doing it for Jared, and everybody at the table were saying just really, it was, we were very emotional. And so right about the time we were all speaking to Jared, this waiter comes up to ask if we wanted more coffee. And I said, we're in the middle of doing a certain exercise. I said, you're welcome to join in if you want to. God is my witness. He comes over, gets very serious, and he points to Jared and he says, I congratulate you on your sobriety. He said, you're really doing great. And he said, you're going to help a lot of people by becoming sober. So when we were all stunned that he said that. So because a lot of times Jared will know people around here. I said, do you know that guy? He said, no, I've never seen him before. I said, you don't know who that guy is? Does he know who you are? He said, I don't think so. I said, what? What? He just comes over and says this incredibly accurate thing about sobriety. I said, how did he know you were sober? He said, well, I was drinking Beck's beer is like a non-alcoholic beer. He said, I had one of those earlier. I said, yeah, but a lot of people drink those. That's not necessarily, going to trigger a prophetic word about your sobriety. I mean, it's been that kind of week. I'll tell you this. When you go through the valley of the shadow of death, one thing that comes with it, your senses become very heightened. And you hear things that you don't normally hear. You become more aware because you've just been through something traumatic, and it kind of, does that make sense? It kind of makes you more acutely aware of everything around you. So everything has just been very, like strangers just walk up and say amazingly relevant things. That's not even surprising me now. I mean, after the guy on the elevator says, yes, Jimmy, a zephyr is a gentle wind from the west. And I'm like, what? How does this guy know my name? When I get off the elevator, I thought, I do have a name tag on. Okay, maybe that was it. But it was just the way he said it. Not something you generally hear on an elevator. And they haven't all been that profound. But like every day, something like that kind of happens. And so that's the good that comes out of all of that. So our outreach this month is Save the Children. We've given to them before. Anytime you Google best charities, it's always in a top 10 vetted. They've been doing for years. And I wanted to do something that's helping children both in Israel and in Palestine. And Save the Children does. A lot of these charitable organizations is one or the other. And I like that this is on both sides of that. So that's who we're giving to this month. And I don't have an announcement to make, but I'm just give you kind of where my head's at, because I'm in a real manifestation zone right now. So if I'm thinking about it, it's probably going to happen. In case you didn't know, the 8th of this week was what they call the Lionsgate portal. and it's an astrological thing where planets line up, and that a lot of people say that manifestation is it's very heightened, that you can bring things, and it goes through the 14th, but the highest day of it is the 8th. You can say, oh, I don't believe in that kind of stuff. Fine, I don't care. I'm just saying, for me, I'll take it. Lionsgate, heck yeah, bring it on. So yep, and today's the 11th, and we meet at 11:11. So Bishop, are you into numerology? Baby, I'm into everything. I'm into by stripes I'm healed, and the Holy Ghost, and vibrations and astrological signs. The knowledge of the Lord fills all the earth as the waters cover the sea. It ain't either or. Jesus told his disciples, they that are not against us are for us. I ain't against nobody. Some people I can't figure out why they think like they think, but I'm still not against them, which is part of my sermon. I don't want to get ahead. But what I am thinking of, we didn't do meditation weekend number 23. I'm going to wait before we go back to. Interestingly, Driftwood Beach was hit by a hurricane like the day after we would have been there. And the thing about it is, with the driftwood, it's hard to destroy it because it already, looks a certain way. But it's going to be a while before I'm going to wait till summertime or spring or summer to go back to one of the islands. But we usually do one in the fall. So I'm thinking about this is not an official announcement, but it's the last weekend of October to do our meditation weekend number 23. And I'm thinking about, we did one here once before, but Unicoi State Park. It's right outside of Helen, and some of you might have been. We went there in January one time. It was super cold, and we rented it's a really neat sort of cabin with a fireplace that overlooks the lake. It's beautiful. I think y'all were at that one, weren't you? So I'd like to go back there in the fall where it's not so cold, and that's where Anna Ruby Falls are, right up the road from there, and it's beautiful. And so I'm just putting that out there. So if you're planning something for the last weekend of October, hang on. Probably I left a message for that place, so I should hear from them tomorrow. I'm in manifestation mode. So the thing I like about Unicoi is I think Helen proper would be too crowded that weekend. But I think Unicoi might not be, and there's a lodge you can stay at. And you can stay at Helen if you want to. So anyway, we've done one in Helen too, but we did that in January. We've done we've done 22 of them. So I've been everywhere, man. Anyway. So I think that's everything I needed to announce. Before I get into my teaching, I wanted to say, Charles, if you can hear us, will you descend the mountain? Charles. I just wanted to say, so I'm going to let Charles tell you what this was, because he had a little a promotion this week. And I just want to say a couple of things about Charles. While he's coming down, Michelle, play that little, just that, and then he can explain to you what it is. Just stand right there. I'm going to say something about it, but I want to tell everybody what that is, what that's about.
So 20 years ago this month, I started a digital media career, and I've been able to podcast and record all along, and that's kind of rare in this field. So that's what that is we hit 20 years this year. Well, I hit 20 years this year. And on top of that, I mean, I haven't been podcasting since I was 4 like he's been preaching, so there's not that. But and then I got announced to the DragonCon spokesperson team this year as well, so I'll be a part of that.
If y'all don't know, DragonCon's this huge can't. I'll get right back to you. Like where I live during Dragon Con, it's like we live in a movie set because like everywhere you look, there's like Star Wars. I mean, it's ginormous. Anyway, finish what you're saying.
I thought that's it.
All right, we want to say congratulations to Charles for his promotion. That's good, thanks. And I do want to. I want to say this two things about Charles. One that I've said before, but this is the thing I've said before. When I came out in 2010, there was a big shift going on in my life. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were leaving Church in the Now, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds were coming in. And during that time, a lot of same-sex loving people came in, and Charles came up to me after one of the services, and he said, "I saw your coming out video," and he said, "I told my wife this is going to be our pastor." So I'm thinking, "Your wife?" Because I looked at him, I said, "I don't think my gaydar is this far off, but you don't read gay to me. I don't like." He said, "Oh, I'm not gay." He said, I thought that was amazing that you had the nerve to tell the truth like you did." Charles' dad was a Southern Baptist pastor. And he said, "I told my wife, if that guy will tell the truth about that, he'll never lie to us." He said, I want to raise my children under your ministry. And even though you don't see his 4 kids, they're all involved here. And that really meant a lot to me, to have a straight ally like that who understood what telling the truth is about. But the other thing is, among the other things that Charles does, he also manages an ambulance company. And when we were in Daytona, this was like the day after Ken had this, what could have been third stroke. And when he had that third one, we had to go baseline again, which means for 24 hours they had to put him laying flat, and they have to start little by little. Like they give you some ice chips. Can you swallow that? And if you can swallow that, then they give you some water. Can you swallow it? It's like a whole process. So in the midst of that, this neurosurgeon is telling me about going to Atlanta, and I'm looking at Ken like he can't even sit up. And I said, "Can you explain to me how I'm supposed to drive him back to Atlanta? I mean, do we life flight him?" He said, "No, you'll be okay." He said, "You'll just need to, stop every so often and let him get out and walk." And I'm looking at him like, I don't know if you saw what happened yesterday, but I don't want that to happen when I'm on I-16 driving back to Atlanta. And Charles contacted me and he said, "If you need an ambulance, I can have one sent down to you." And we ended up not having to use it, but for about 3 days, I cannot tell you the peace of mind that it gave me, because I thought, well, if it comes to that, if we're not any more improved, do I want one? Yes. And it's expensive. He was offering it for free for me, and I was like, wow. And later in the week, I said, "It looks like we're not going to need it, but I can't tell you how helpful that was during the week just to know that was a possibility." Because I'm thinking, how am I going to do that? I was telling his sons that one of y'all got to fly down here and ride back with me, because I don't know what to do if we're on the expressway and he does what he did yesterday. I can't, that's a whole thing. So anyway, we're past all that. According to the neurosurgeon this week, he's not at any threat. There's no imminent threat of stroke, and he's got to take his meds, and no more lemon drop martinis, Jesus. Not at least for a while. But anyway, that just when I commented on that post, Charles said, "I've been with you for 14 years." I said, "Well, you're a rock for me, and I never take it for granted." And I know I talk a lot about the tech team, but they're all just completely faithful and self-starters and low maintenance. And I never one time think, I wonder if Michelle's going to show up today. I wonder if BJ's going to show up. I mean, if for whatever reason they can't be here, they always make sure, without even me having to worry about it, they always make sure everything's covered. And I can't tell you how awesome that is to not have to. Of course, I know Avery's going to be faithful, earning everything. They've proven that. But people like that they're rare. I remember my dad pastoring churches, and I don't know if you went through this, Eddie, and your pastor, but I can remember him having choir directors that we were never sure if they were going to show up on a Sunday because they were always freaked out about something. I can't tell you the Sundays like, Brother Tidwell's not here today because he got mad about something. And like, well, we got a service. I don't even live in that world now. Like I know, and I can say the same thing for y'all. I mean, y'all have been with me. I've tried to duck you several times. I keep moving locations. Like, we found you. I didn't think Valerie was going to find us. With her niece, she came in here. I found you anyway, Bishop. Where can I go from your presence? And I love that. I love that about y'all. So, what? You ain't got to bring all that up. You don't have to put all my business in the street. What Sonia's talking about, I had planned on last Sunday being Metron's last Sunday. And Sonia said, when I heard that, I thought I was going to have to lead an intervention. I was going to lead the way. Like, oh, no, you ain't. You're going to stand up and say, and I am telling you, I'm not going. You're the best man. She was about to break into a chorus of, and I am telling you. Mr. Swiley, there's a black woman down here in the lobby. Oh, God. Lord have mercy. That is too funny. That is too funny. No, y'all have convinced me. We've actually entered the next chapter. And thank you for your giving last week. It hasn't quite reached what I visualized, but it will. And it's going to continue to come in. And this is what I've learned about when you have a certain amount in mind, hold to that vision. And with every little bit that comes in, you're like, well, we're getting closer to it. The hundredfold return doesn't come in on one wave. It comes in, first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear, here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept on precept. So don't ever be disappointed when you think, well, this isn't the exact return I wanted. It's coming. That, to me, when anything comes in, I think, well, that's a good indication. There's more where that came from. If you could give me any, just in general, you give me any kind of hope at all, I mean, I'll hold on to it. It's, okay, then that means there's more where that came from. But thank you for that, son. And I believe if anybody could lead an intervention. How many years were you in the military? 30-something? So when she has... If you didn't hear that, she said, I got 20, however many years of federal service telling grown men what to do. Oh, my God. Y'all are too funny. Reggie's good with it. Reggie ain't scared. Look, it takes a strong man to be with a strong woman. You know what I mean? It's like when a strong man's not intimidated by a strong woman. I'm like, hey, you go, boy. That says a lot for him. So, all right, Lord have mercy. I'm gonna get right into the word today, if that's okay. So we speak in this atmosphere and we say, "Let there be light." Welcome to the Metron Live podcast, coming to you from the Kirkwood neighborhood, brought to you by the rock god of podcasting, who is celebrating his 20th year in podcasting. Would you please tell Charles how much we appreciate him continuing to do this? And for those of you listening to the podcast, we welcome you. I'm starting a series. This probably is going to be a 3-part series. And these are some things I've touched on before, but I'm going to say some things today I've never said. So just keep your mind open. My title is Things Known and Unknown, opening up the portals of perception for personal progression. Um, I'm going to show you this verse of scripture. It's one of my favorites. I use it a lot. It's out of the 6th chapter of Matthew. This is part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. But I'm going to show you verse 22 and 23. First of all, this is in the New King James Version. Here he says, "The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good." Now, if you read in the 1611 King James Version, if thine eye be single. But the better translation is good. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. Meaning, the way you see things, when he talks about your body, he's using the human body as an avatar for your natural reality. Basically saying everything that you perceive, the way you see the world creates the world. The way you visualize things manifest into not just the physical body, but all of the area that you perceive with your 5 natural senses, okay? So he says, "The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness?" He's basically saying the quality of your life is determined by how you see things. Your relationship with God is dependent not on God, but on how you see God. If you think God is vindictive and judgmental, you're going to draw that out of God. You're going to draw that out of human relationships. You're going to find verses of Scripture that support your theory that God's angry. If you see God as benevolent and loving and forgiving, that's what you're going to draw out of God. You're going to draw that out of your relationships. Your theology is your theologic, your God logic. Theos is the Greek word for God. So the theology or the theologos is how you see God determines not just your relationship with God, but your relationship with everything. It affects your politics. It affects your ability to produce abundance. It affects your significant relationships, your romantic relationships. Everything in the vertical affects the horizontal. To me, the cross is symbolic mostly because it's a vertical beam and a horizontal beam. It's love God with all of your heart, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's everything in the vertical affects everything in the horizontal. The more I find God, the more I find myself. The more I find myself, the more I find God. The more God is revealed to me, the more I am revealed to me. The more I am revealed to myself, the more I see God. Everything, just not everything is connected, but everything in that sense is totally connected. If you think God is angry, you're going to be angry. If you think God is this impossible ideal of perfection that nobody can ever please, you're going to be impossible to please. It affects everything. Now I'm going to show you this same verse. This is in the Jonathan Mitchell New Testament. And the reason I use ellipsis here is there's a lot of words. As I always tell you about this guy, he shows you every possible shade of meaning of what these words could have meant. So when I do ellipses, it's just I'm cutting out a lot of words that are basically repeating. So this is Matthew 6:22 and 23 in the Jonathan Mitchell. Here's what he says. The eye is the lamp of the body, or in other words, visualization affects the natural world, or how you move through the natural world. How the natural world responds to you. If you see yourself as a victim, you know what? You're going to draw behavior out of people that's going to victimize you. Because you're going through life with a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that when somebody if you think you deserve to be treated badly and somebody treats you badly, there's nearly like a confirmation bias where you're like, see, I told you, that's the way you are. That's the way men are. That's the way women are. That's the way white people are. That's the way black people are. That's the way Republicans are. That's the way Democrats. You've got something already in your mind so that when somebody fulfills that to you, you're like, see, I told you. And there's nearly, even when it's negative, there's nearly a payoff feeling that you think, see, I told you. That's the way. Listen to what people say. When somebody says, you know, it would just be my luck that so-and-so would happen. It's because you're going through life assuming you got bad luck. So that when something negative happens, you're like, well, there it goes again. The eye of the lamp is the body. If then your eye may continue being single-fold, simple and uncompounded, single-focused, straightforward, healthy, your whole body will continue to be illuminated or enlightened. Yet if your eye should continue being in a bad condition or cloudy, your whole body will continue being dark or in the dark or full of darkness. If then the light which is within the midst of you is darkness, how thick is the darkness? How great and extensive will be the obscurity and gloom of that area of shadows? Everybody is motivated by their perception of life. And if the way you perceive life is the mechanism that's creating your reality, which is why, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, maybe in the next couple of weeks, the phenomena of perception. How does it happen? What is it? Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think there's your ancestry, the way you were raised, stuff that happens to you in your childhood, your neighborhood, especially, and this is why I've said for years I've never met a well-traveled bigot, because the more you travel and you get like a cross-pollination of ideas, you just learn to think outside the box, and you just see the world differently. If all you ever get is ideas from your family, from your neighborhood, you're going to see things a certain way. It may not necessarily be bad, but you're going to be locked into a certain mindset. I know in my own life, the more I have traveled, like at first, I started noticing how different everybody was around the world. And then the more you travel, the more you meet people, that arc actually kind of bends, and you start seeing how similar everybody is. But it's not just that. It's the stuff that you listen to. It's the books that you read. It's experiences that you have that can alter your perception. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But let me show you. I've used this a lot before. I love this in the Caboris manuscript. This is, in case you don't know, this is out of the Aramaic, which is the language Jesus spoke. Old Testament written in Hebrew, New Testament written in Greek. Jesus spoke Aramaic. People in that part of the world were multilinguists. They spoke a lot of languages. And I would also like to say, as we're coming to the end of the Olympics, which is all about the Greek gods on Mount Olympus, and I told you about that last week. It was so interesting that I met somebody named Zephyr, which is the god Zephyrus, who was over the wind. You know, Jesus even referred to Greek mythology. Most of the times when he would use the word that got translated in English as hell, it was the word Gehenna, which was a garbage dump outside of Jerusalem. But on one occasion, he used the word Hades, and Hades was the Greek god of the underworld. There was a whole thing about, there was Cerberus was the three-headed dog that guarded the river Styx that went to the underworld. So even Jesus, interchangeably, he could talk about Greek mythology, and people knew exactly what he meant. This whole thing where Christians now, especially American Christians, are clutching the pearls over anything they think is, oh, that sounds cultic, that sounds new agey. Did you ever read the Gospels? You know, one day Jesus says, who do men say that I am? And his disciple says, well, some say you're the reincarnation of Elijah or John the Baptist. And Jesus didn't say, oh, I rebuke it in Jesus' name, or in my name. He just says, oh, really? Well, what do you say? Meaning, God will be who you say that God is. This is gonna be real good today. Y'all just need to prepare yourself. This may go down in history as one of my best teachings. Here's what he says in the Kibboris. The light for your earthly life is perception. Therefore, if your perception is without fault, your whole life shall be enlightened. If your perception be evil, your whole life shall be darkened by it. If the light for you is darkness, how deep will your darkness become? I love that. Because the way you perceive something creates your reality. None of us are totally living in the same world. Even the person the person you're married to doesn't completely perceive the world the way that you perceive it. Nobody, your perception is completely unique to you. It's true though. Any of you that have successful marriages know that that we agree on enough stuff to stay together, and there's some stuff that you see that I'm like, I couldn't live long enough to ever see things that way. But if that's the way you see it, okay, it's not a deal breaker. I don't see it the way you see it, but if you see it, I honor it, and that's part of marriage. It's like, well, if this is important to you, if that's what you see, then I'll try to see that too. But the best we're going to do is look out of the same side of the house. We're never going to look at the same window, because your window is unique to you. Your window was framed by your childhood, your upbringing, the dynamics of your parents, stuff that happened to you on the playground, the people you were exposed to growing up, the people who affected your thinking. I didn't have all of those things. So if we can both look out, I'm at my window, you're at your window, we're both seeing the same yard. So we'll be able to stay together. But I can even walk over and look through your window and say, I don't see it. But I honor that you see it. So, okay. Exactly. I mean, I think every married couple should know this before they enter marriage, because to say you're going to agree on most things, but there's going to be this little area between the way your two circles intersect that you'll never ever see that. And so you just learn to say, that's fine. That's a reality with them. And I also expect you to honor there's certain things that I see that you're probably never going to see, but it's okay. And you can influence each other. Sometimes I can look through your window for a little bit. I get it. I see it. And I can understand it, and I respect it. That's cute. Now I'm going back to my window. All right. All right, let me show you this quote by Leanne Taylor. We do not see the world through a window, but through a mirror. Okay, well, now that's next level, because I'm talking about looking through a window. Now she's saying, yeah, it's a window, but it's really a mirror. Hold that thought. Everything we discern is comparatively held to the vision with which we see ourselves. Let me show you this next quote. This is Neil Donald Walsh. He says, quantum physics tells us that nothing that is observed is unaffected by the observer. That statement from science holds an enormous and powerful insight. It means that everyone sees a different truth because everyone is creating what they see. All right. Now, I'm going to say some things, and I feel like y'all are mature enough that I don't have to give you a bunch of disclaimers. I just want you to hear me. To the pure in heart, all things are pure. So this week, I'm scrolling through my feeds, and I go, I come across this Instagram post by my cousin-in-law. someone who's married to my first cousin, that I've known for a long time, but I don't know him that well. I didn't really know my first cousin that well. Her mother and my uncle were divorced when she was very young, so I was closer to my mom's family than I was my dad's family. And with her, I saw her even less. So no bad blood between us. We just didn't know each other that well. And then when she married him, I got to know them a little better. My dad married them, and I've preached at his church. He's preached at my church, and he has a mega church. He's one of the biggest churches in the world. And good guy. I've never had any negative thing with him at all. The times I've been with him in person, very sweet. Seems to love God with all of his heart. He spoke at my dad's funeral, and not only did he speak at it, he just flew in on his private plane from meeting with President Trump, who he's an advisor for him. But he loved my dad and had the prayer tower that's named after my dad painted, which I'm sure cost a pretty penny. So I got no personal issues with him whatsoever. Y'all with me? But I'm looking at his picture of him standing with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and saying that God spared Trump for a reason when he got shot, because that's his perception. And in another teaching, he had gone on to even use Deuteronomy about the anointing of blood on the ear. And I was like, oh, Lord, you lost me on that one. If it was anybody but you, I would say that's blasphemy. But I love you as much as I know you. So I have to look at that and say, I don't get that at all. I could sit down for 100 hours and you could tell me your viewpoint. I would say, I'm never going to see that man the way that you see it. And if this is anybody but you, I would just say, heretic. But this is somebody that I'm related to, and I know and love. And, you know, his mother-in-law took my mom out to eat last night. I mean, he's in my sphere of consciousness. So I look at that and I go, well, that's his perception. His upbringing and his theology created a viewpoint of his that I would look at and say, I mean, can I say words like false doctrine? Because that's how I would say it to anybody that I didn't know. But I'm sure he would look at some of the things that I teach and say the same thing. He would look at some things I teach and say, in a million years, I would never get that. So we're two people that respect each other, love each other, have no personal issue with each other. In fact, at Dad's funeral, he acknowledged Ken and me as a couple. He said, our prayers are going out to Jim and Ken, which for him was a very brave thing to say, because he comes from a world where people don't say that. Y'all with me? Is this going to be too real? Because it's about to get realer. So I'm like, okay, it's not always easy to say namaste. But I'm like, all right, that which is sacred to me honors that which is sacred to you. I scroll on down. My cousin on the other side, who's a bishop, the title of his message against Christian white nationalism is Shamala Hamala Mamala Kamala. He's as far on the other side of the spectrum. I got one cousin saying, God's putting Donald Trump back in office. He saved his life. That bullet missed him. Which I'm thinking, my only issue with that is somebody right behind him got killed, so I'm sure their family was like, well, God's in the business of saving everybody. Why didn't he save my husband? But I digress. This is why I very much believe in expressing your gratitude. I'm a little hesitant to give God specific praise for everything, because I know there are other people that didn't experience that. Like, if you're on the street and everybody's house got blown away by the tornado, and you're out there saying, God spared our house, your neighbors aren't going to enjoy that so much. So they're going to say, what's it? Now, if you want to say, we're so grateful our house was spared, heck yeah. But when you drag God into it, all the other people will be like, well, where was God when my house is getting blown away? Listen, I'm even aware of it when I've posted so much about Ken's miracles. I'm aware that other people did not have that experience. You know, Bobby had that stroke years ago. His experience was very different. There are some people that, had strokes and didn't recover. And so I'm very aware to say I'm very grateful for all of your prayers. And I even went so last week, I said, for those of you that have loved ones who had strokes who have not had our experience, let this inspire you to believe that even though your healing may be happening at a different pace, if it happened for us, it can happen for you too. But do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want to be so insensitive. Other people over there can't talk, can't move their arms, and I'm like, God delivered us. It's kind of making people eat it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what was wrong with y'all, but God delivered us. See ya. Am I being too real? Because it's going to get realer. So I got one cousin that's saying God spared Trump because he's God's man for the hour. I got another cousin saying Shamala Hamala Mamala Kamala. He was making a joke, but he was saying he was very pro Kamala Harris. Bishop, where are you on that? I don't endorse candidates. I never have. I think you know where I come from. But I'm old school. I'm not faulting either of my cousins. I come from that old school that says you promote a candidate, you jeopardize your 501c3 status. But that may not be the truth anymore because everybody's promoting everybody. So I'm like, well, okay, I guess. Eddie put up a thing on his door of his business for Kamala Harris, and somebody defaced it, and he put it on TikTok, and now he's become the darling of that way. You've got how many views have you had on TikTok? So I'm like, well, you go, boy. I mean, like, that's amazing. My point is, you have to think, how did their theology, how did their perception get shaped? Because I could sit down with this one cousin and tell him everything I think about Donald Trump. It will never, ever, 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 ever change his opinion. Yesterday when I went over, check on my mom, I saw the doc's letting her borrow her keyboard. That was sweet. I saw it in there. When I walk in, Fox News is blaring. She watches it nearly 24 hours a day. There's a part of me when I'm paying her bill at Xfinity, every month I'm tempted to say, they don't offer Fox anymore. I had to take it off your package. But I can't say that to her with a straight face. So all I could say when I walk in is, Mom, can you turn that down? Because to me, it's worse than somebody scratching on a blackboard. But that's my perception. Bishop, what do you think about it? You don't want to know what I think about it. Because I'll bring in Revelation 13. It talks about the false prophet that lied and gave power to the beast, and the beast deceived the whole world. I'm like, well, that's obvious. Fox News is the false prophet that's empowering the beast. It's right there in Revelation 13. But that's my perception. I could sit down with lots of Bible scholars who would say, you are a heretic. Now, what caused me to perceive things in a certain way? I don't know. You look at Saul of Tarsus. He had a very specific view of Jesus and of Christianity. He believed it was a cult, and he took it upon himself to single-handedly stamp it out. He single-handedly went and arrested people, and historians are conflicted on this, but it looks like he had some people executed because they followed Jesus. And then one day, Acts chapter 9, he's on the road to Damascus, and a bright light shines out of heaven. And Jesus, not Jesus the man with a beard, but Jesus the light, says, why are you persecuting me? And he knocks Saul to the ground and blinds him. And he says, go into this next town, and a man named, I can't think of his, I started to say, it's not Epaphroditus, it's Ananias, I think. He will lay hands on you, and you'll recover his sight. And you'll recover your sight. It became symbolic of him. He had a complete paradigm shift. So in the same communities where he'd been killing somebody's mama, was there the next week saying, if any man's in Christ, he's a new creature. All things are passed away. Like, yeah, but that's easy for you to say now. So there are things that can happen to you that will greatly alter your perception. Many people back in the day when Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, they connected the dots. That's what spurred the abolitionist movement, because especially literate people up north, who slavery wasn't that much of a part of their consciousness, they had no idea that they, in their mind, oh well, they're just farm hands that like, and so they read Uncle Tom's Cabin and they're like, oh, this is really bad. We should get rid of slavery. There was one time Abraham Lincoln was addressing an audience, and Harriet Beecher Stowe was in the audience. He said, I'd like everybody to meet the little lady that started the Civil War. So there are things that you can read that will alter the way that you think. I have a teacher. She is my favorite teacher I had in all of my school career, and we're still in contact. Everything that I've posted about kids, she calls me Jimmy, because in high school I was Jimmy Swilly, and I'm actually gonna try to get. She may be streaming right now. I'm gonna try to get with her. I was gonna have lunch with her the week that we had our situation, so I've had to postpone it. But I wrote her sometime back, and I said, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but no teacher affected the way that I thought more than you did. I mean, she was my 10th grade English lit teacher, but she was also the faculty sponsor for the school paper, and I was on the school paper for 3 years. I was the editor my senior year, so I was interacting with her a lot, and I loved her. If she thought something was cool, I thought it was cool. So I know, a lot of our influence comes from people we have affection for, and if they see things a certain way, they influence us. That being said, on Facebook regularly, I will read, somebody will post something to me and they'll say, Bishop, nobody affected me more than you did. And I look at their Facebook page and I think, I don't think I affected you that much. I don't know how you sat under my teaching and could post something like that, but I guess if you say so, okay. You know what I really think it is? And this is probably applicable to every one of you listening to me right now. Probably the first time you heard me teach, I said things that confirmed stuff that you already believed. Does that make sense? It wasn't like you said, oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. You're like, I've always thought that, but I never heard anybody say it. You said it. So I think you're my shepherd, and I hear your voice, and a stranger I will not follow. You also know what it's like to bring a family member in, and you say, you're going to love him so much, and they're like, I don't get it. What is the deal? Because my ministry is not confirming something that they already believe. How can two people come out of the same household and see things very differently? They can. I have 4 children, and they're alike in a lot of ways, and in other ways, they're completely different. I can look at ways I'm very much like my parents, and there's other ways I'm nothing like them. You know what would be the idea of hell to my parents, if my dad was still alive? Going to New York City. That would be hell to them. Being in crowds and subways and stuff, they would never get that. When I was little bitty, my cousin Mark and I, we talked about the Empire State Building, because back then it was the tallest building in the world. And we'd say, I wonder what happens if you throw a penny off and hit somebody in the head. Well, we talked about stuff like that all the time. One of these days, I'm going to go to the Empire State Building. When I finally did go, I knew where everything was, because I had read about it and meditated and dreamed of it. I'm like, oh, it's right there on the corner of 5th Avenue and 34th Street. It's right. I'm telling New Yorkers how to get there, because I'd been there so much in my mind before I ever got there. I remember one time my dad saying, why are you going back to New York? You've already been there. I said, Dad, that would be like saying, why are you going back to the beach? You've already been there. Like, it's not like a thing for me. It's not like a thing that you go one time. I remember, and this is how people affect you. I remember, y'all know my friend Howie. He and I went to hear Reba sing in Florida when we were in college. And I think it might have been the first conversation I ever had with her. And we were I don't even know how we met, but we were talking after the concert. And this is when The Wiz was on. It's back on Broadway now, but this was in its original incarnation. She said, have you guys seen The Wiz? And I said, no, but I would really love to. I said, when did you see it? And she said, well, I saw it last week in New York. And I didn't live in a world where people just went to New York because they wanted to. Do you know what I mean? That wasn't a world I lived in. So I said, what were you doing in New York? And she said, oh, well, sometimes, we go and we'll see some shows and shop. And it was like, I'd never even heard that that's a possibility. Like, you just go there to see shows and just like hang out? I mean, I could literally feel a neuropath in my brain opening up. Like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. And I remember, I would have been 19 at the time. I remember thinking, I am totally going to do that. I don't think I've ever been to New York in all the years I've gone there. We didn't go last year because I was taking care of Mom, but we're going this year, by God. This year, I'm going to hear some Christmas carols at St. Patrick's Cathedral, as God is my witness. And people say, wasn't it really crowded? Oh, it's insane. I bet you're never going back. Yeah, we'll go back the week before Christmas. Like, sure. Because if you love it, that's like, oh, yeah, it's crowded. And now, now I'm ready to go. But while I'm there, and I don't think I've ever gone to a show that just for just a nanosecond, I think about that conversation I had with Reba and remember it influencing me so much. I remember thinking, one of these days, I'm going to go to New York just to see shows and go shopping. Did I say that out loud? Because I thought it was a thing you just saved up your money and one day you went and saw it and that was it. No. But that can change your opinion of things. I remember, and this seems like, when I say this now, it seems like I'm talking about another person. But I remember years ago, for years I wore a suit and tie 6 days a week, 5 days a week to the office, and even on Sundays. So I was always buying ties. And I remember one time, Debbie and I had gotten a little bit financially better place, and I remember walking to Neiman Marcus and looking at Versace ties. I'd never seen one before. And I'm looking at them like, I didn't know people paid this for a tie. And I could pay for it, but I thought, should I spend this much on a tie? I'm having this conversation like, well, you wear it all the time. It's not really that much of a... While I'm thinking these thoughts, a businessman walks up beside me, picks up the same tie, and then starts loading his arm with tie after tie after tie after tie after... he probably bought 30 ties. And walks, I'm looking at him like, he walks to the counter and pays for them and leaves while I'm still thinking, should I pay that much for a tie? Now I don't even wear them. I don't even think I remember how to tie a tie. But my point is, that completely changed my perception. I thought, wow, there are people who just walk into the store and just buy what they want. Like, there's no hesitation. I'm sitting here like, should I? Shouldn't I? Should I? Shouldn't I? Get it? And I'd put it back down. This guy's like, I'll take that one and that one and that one and that one. And just goes and buys them. I'm like, what? But what I'm saying is, it's all those things that affect your perception of things. What's that got to do with this? Well, all you can be responsible for is your perception of the world. And your perception should evolve. I don't see the world the way I saw it 30 years ago. You know what? If I walked into Neiman Marcus today, I'd be like, why would anybody pay that for one of those ties? Because I'm in a completely different place now. I could. But you know what I also remember? I've told you this story before. Back in the early days when the church was still in a grocery store, I would go to Burlington's Coat Factory and buy this tie. They were like $3.50, $5. I don't mean $350. I mean $3.50, maybe $5. And I remember I bought this. It was $4.95, $5 tie. I bought it. I was out in Tulsa at a big faith conference, and I'm sitting at a table with these are all prosperity preachers. So you walk up, you can smell the cloud of cologne from 30 feet away. And everybody's got diamonds on and Rolexes. And so I sit down with my $5 tie on. And one of the guys at the table says, "Man, I like that tie you're wearing." I said, "Thank you." And he said, "And I know how much a tie like that costs." And everybody at the table looked at me. And I didn't say nothing. I didn't say, "I only paid $5 for this at Burlington's Coat Factory." You know what I said? I said, "I'm sure you do." And because I've experienced that before, I've paid a lot for something that nobody ever noticed. Buy something at Target and people stop you, go, "Oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." So now I'm like, I just look at it differently. But my perception evolved over the years. Now, if we go to New York, I don't even buy anything because it's like I don't want anything. I mean, but basically I'm wearing black clothes. Everything goes with everything else. I can put everything in a bag, and I don't have to worry. Does that go with it? Black goes with black. So, but I didn't always feel that way. There was a time I said, I need to take several outfits. No, when you go to New York, no point in taking, especially in wintertime, you're covered with a coat the whole time. Nobody's even going to see what you're wearing. You could wear the same thing, just change your drawers. You wear the same thing every day. Nobody even knows because you're wearing a coat the whole time. You just walk in, take it off, and put it back on. I've learned that the hard way. Now, I don't even have to pack a bag. I just take a carry-on. Like, I'm good to go. Got a toothbrush, ready to go. But it took a while. My perception went through several stages of evolution to get there. And you have to remember, the people in your world are still in their own stages of evolution. At least what I've had to do with my mom is just say, "You know what? For the rest of your natural life, let's just never discuss politics. Let's just never, I'm not going to bring up my stuff. You don't bring." At least she didn't support the insurrection. If she had supported the insurrection, I would have to say, I can't be your son anymore. Just tell people you didn't have any children, and whatever you're going to leave, just leave it to my kids, and I'll come to your funeral. But I can't. At least she was mad about that. I was like, thank God. But that's my perception. Other people have said that wasn't an insurrection. That was a tourist. That was some tourists. I'm like, wow, that's a stretch. But here's the thing. People have different viewpoints. Much of it is because of their theology. If your theology is based on this, what I would call conspiracy theory, that there's this devil that's out there that's after you all the time, of course it's easy to believe in a deep state. Of course, because everything you believe is based on paranoia. So you read into everything that everybody does, and it totally, you're going to see, if you're not seeing it already, you're going to see it more and more in the next few weeks as we approach the election. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. I've had several premonitions of things lately, but I don't know. I don't know. I've had to decide whatever's going to happen, I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to have to keep that in perspective. And, let people believe what they're going to believe. And I'm not even telling you not to post your stuff. I think, I have friends that post stuff that I would never post, but I'm not opposed to sending a little something like, I would never post this on my page, but you might want it. And then I see it on their page. I'm like, thank you. Because I got to kind of keep neutral. I'm somewhere between God Save Trump and Shamala Hamala Mamala Kamala. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be right here. And I'm going to say, see, I've irritated Philip. Philip, I'm sorry. Come on, man. Is that what happened? I know. If he says one more thing about Trump, I'm out of here. All right, let me get back to my teaching. Here, this is something that I wrote in a meditation about 3 years ago. Let me show you this. The whole universe functions in synchronicity. David said, The steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord. When Paul tapped into this concept, he concluded that all things work together for good. Every moment of your life operates in synchronicity. Confirmation is happening all around you at all times. That's why we go into the restaurant Friday and she says, we got lady peas. I said, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a lady peas day. Is that a small thing? No, that's a thing that's saying you're in the zone. You chose the right restaurant. You're making good choices. You're in your flow. You're in your zone. The only reason you do not experience synchronicity fully is that you are not in the state of awareness to notice that it is happening. That's why when you told me about the people in Oklahoma, you said it was, I don't know, fortuitous was your word, but it just happened there was a helicopter available. And I said, well, he'll be okay. Because the way I look at it is, if things are lining up like that, you'll be okay. I'm not saying it's not a serious operation, but he'll get through it. And I've talked to people who have had bypass that was like a new lease on life for them. They had like a second youth again. So when I heard, if they had said they tried to get a helicopter, and I'd be like, ooh, Lord, that doesn't sound good. But if I see something, Bishop, you're really into synchronicity. Yeah. It's harmony. It's confirmation. It's being in the right place at the right time. It's following your instincts and making that phone call and getting, like when he called this week and immediately she said, yeah, we've got a CTA scan Wednesday at 4 o'clock or something like that. I was like, oh, you're going to be okay. Like the planets are lining up. Bishop, that's God's favor. Yes, but can I just say, I think everybody has God's favor. If I keep talking about God's favor this, God favor that, I'm implying that I'm his favorite. I would rather say, let me show you some things that are working for us. Maybe this will inspire you. Your journey will be different from my journey, but I can show you things that might be a game changer for you. And I've heard this so many times in the last, what's been 4 weeks since his initial stroke. I've heard so many people say, I'm going through my own thing, and when I talked to somebody yesterday who's just been diagnosed with stomach cancer, and she said, I keep reading everything that y'all have been through, and all it does is energize me to believe. For me, I said, exactly. It's not us going, we got favor. No, we may have tapped into something that can inspire you, but there's enough of this to go around. God's not just favoring us. We just have learned some stuff over the years. Let's move on. But the more aware you become, the more you see that everything that is happening in every moment is happening together with everything else that is a part of fulfilling the intentions by which they were created. All that being said, you always have to remember that you're observing everything through a mirror rather than through a window. You know the saying, we do not see the world as it is, we see it as we are. I would even go so far as to say we don't read the Bible as it is, we read it as we are. I remember, probably Eddie's the only person here that came from a background where you heard people prophesy. But I remember, like in the old Pentecostal church, people's prophecies sounded like them. You know what I mean? Like if somebody was harsh and judgmental, their prophecy was, judgment begins in the house of God, and he's threshing his threshing floor, and all about the wheat and the chaff, because that's the way they saw the world. Sweet people that loved everybody, they were like, I'm the God that loves and forgives and loves everybody, because it's part of your spirit. When you prophesy, it's not just you channeling the deity. It's the God in you saying something that is real. Why? Because it is real. That's my point. Which is why, when we were in Daytona the other day, I did a update, and I said, this is what I believe. Because I can tell sometimes I've got some friends on Facebook that don't think I'm Jesus-y enough. I can just tell. Like I post something and they'll respond like, it's because of our Lord Jesus Christ who died on the cross. I'm like, easy. I know I'm all about Jesus. But they don't think I'm saying Jesus enough. My feeling is if that's what you believe, then that's where your energy's going to be. Since I have said stuff about my mom today, let me say this part. In the midst of everything, I was talking to her one night, standing outside of ICU. I call her every night, and she's asked how Ken was. And I told her, and in her frail 86-year-old voice, she was praying for him and using a little bit of her prayer language. And you know what? It touched me deeply. I was like, yeah, pray for me, Mama. I hadn't felt that in a long time. Like, this is what's organic and real to her. So that's what I'm saying. The God in her is speaking to me. That's what we've got to realize. All this stuff is lateral. I've been saying this for years, but Jesus says to the woman caught in adultery, where are your accusers? I don't have any. He says, you're good to go. I don't accuse you. Meaning, the accusation was never coming from God. It was coming from peers. That's why, if you'll notice that thing I posted day before yesterday where I put my hand up, what I said was, as an elder in the house of God, which I am, with everything that's in me, I speak. I didn't even say Jesus. I didn't say by stripes I'm healed. I'm saying I'm sending this to you because I feel this really strong, and I've got a big overflow of miracles. We got excess miracles right now. We're lousy with miracles. We got miracles out the wazoo. So I got some extra stuff. I can give you some stuff right now. Whew. Some of you ladies ever put hand cream on and you got too much? And you said to somebody, let me give you some of this. Good measure, pressed down, shaking together, and running over. When I've had a lot of miracles, that's why I felt it the other day when I was sending that word to Tracy for her husband. I said, I'm feeling this for a lot of people. There's probably a lot of people that prayed for us that got their own drama going on. So I thought, don't even overthink it. I put the thing up there. I don't remember when I've had so much response. Because I got some extra. I'm like, let me give you some of this. Let me give you some of this. Because I got a lot. Woo! One of the covenant names of God is El Shaddai. The God, you know what it really means? Some people say it's the God that's more than enough. What the Hebrew is more like is the God who's just too much. What do they say now when somebody's over the top? They say, well, she's so extra. You know what? God is extra. So I don't feel like I'm trying to get this entity to get up off a throne and finally do something. I'm like, no, God's here. God's us. I know that freaks some people out. But it's the truth. It's the God in us that's speaking to each other. It's the divinity in us. Which, speaking of this guy, as I told you, there was one time when Ken was in a really bad place while we were still in ICU. And I said, Ken, there's people all over the country praying for you. There are Native Americans dancing for you in Oklahoma. You have to be okay. You know what? He got okay. Did that come from God? Yeah, but you know where it came from? Oklahoma. God's in Oklahoma. That being said, you always have to remember that, the phrase in the Bible's famous love chapter is poorly translated in the King James Version as, for now we see through a glass darkly. The original Greek actually says something more like, for now we see in a mirror dimly. Don't try to fix the world today. Just focus on your own self-esteem, personal perception, and living your best life. The better you feel about yourself and about the direction in which your life is headed, the better you'll feel about the situations in the world around you. See, I really do believe that if you have to stop trying to micromanage everybody. My mom's going to watch Fox News. She's just going to. There's no point in us arguing about it. It's not going to produce anything. That's her perception of the world. I'm sure my cousin-in-law is probably preaching a great sermon today, and people are being blessed by it. I'm not going to take that away from him. Is he anointed? Sure, he's anointed. Of course he is. You just had to give the punchline. The knowledge of the Lord fills all the earth as the waters cover the sea. David walks out and says, you know, when I look up at the sky, the heavens declare the glory of God. He says, I look up at the clouds and I see it. No, it's in the Bible. Baby, a little bit of it's in the Bible. But if you only think God's in the Bible, you got a little teeny tiny God that can fit between two leather covers. The Bible's part of it, but just a part of it. The Word of God. In the beginning was the Word. Not in the beginning was the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. I told you it was going to be good today. Y'all didn't believe me. Y'all ain't ready for this. And then finally, and this is really where I got my title from today, this Aldous Huxley quote that says, there are things known and there are things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. Before I put a comma here, and I'll do part 2 next week, if you're going to concentrate on anything, concentrate on your own perception. Why are you seeing things the way that you see them? Because until you deal with that, you're still going to be saying, well, why didn't God do this? Or why didn't God do that? Or why did God do that for that person? And I don't mean this in a blaming sense. I'm not saying everything's on you and your fault. I'm saying to set you free. To say, like, when something happens with me that I don't like, I have to say, how am I seeing this that's making me feel this way? Why is my perception shaped in this way? Because there may be, you know, the only way Jesus said you could enter the kingdom was through repentance. It was through changing, metaneo, changing the way you saw things. That's what baptism means. I do not for a second believe there's a God somewhere that's saying, unless you were dunked the right way, you're going to hell for eternity. I mean, you've got to have a bigger God than that. The point of baptism was to say, I am officially making a statement that I'm trying to see the world in a different way. When I come up out of that water, or you sprinkle me, I'm gonna have a paradigm shift. That's how I enter the kingdom. You say, well, no, it's repentance from sin. Repentance from sin means you stop thinking the way that's making you do that thing. Because until you deal with that, why do I do that? David was super introspective. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse me from, keep thy servant back from presumptuous sins, and cleanse me from secret faults. He was constantly, David would have been in therapy if he lived today. Because he was always wanting to get to the bottom. Why do I see things this way? Why do I need a harem of women? Why do I, what's up with me and my kids? Why is all this happening? And again, I'm not saying this to shame anybody. I'm saying this to set you free. Because when you start embracing the fact that when you change the way you see things, the way you see things change, it will completely alter your life. Let's all stand. Did you get anything out of this today? And wherever you are politically, I respect that. This was not a political statement. I'm talking about different people's perception. I don't have to explain that. Y'all are grown folks. And I think people listening to me at home are grown folks. That being said, I'm actually glad our country has a two-party system. I like that there's two different perceptions of things because it's a balance of things. That's why there has to be compromise with the House and the Senate, because there's two different viewpoints, and between the the opposition of perceptions, we form a more perfect union. That's what's supposed to happen. And I believe it will continue to happen. I still believe those founding fathers, with all of their limitations, they were European men who lived in a certain time in history, but they spoke prophetic words that we all want to live in. Nobody's building a wall to keep us in here. Wellington's laughing because he knows what I'm thinking. Every time Wellington goes to his homeland, we tell him bye. A few days later, he's back. He went and saw him, and he came right back. Remain standing. We'll play the outro. Please.
Contributing to Metron is quick and easy. You can give anytime using any smartphone. Text the amount you would like to donate to 404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishopthenow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment into Metron.
If you're making a check, make it to JESM. If you didn't get a chance to give last week for our 10th anniversary, you can still do that. If you have cash, just pay it forward. I bless your vision. I bless your perception. I bless your memories. Whatever has gone into, whatever the ingredients are of your perception of life, I speak that only what is good and acceptable remains in your perception. Whatever needs to be removed is removed. And that you have a gift of sight. I bless the mind of Christ in you. I bless your intuition. I bless your insight. I bless your third eye. I bless your prophetic insight. That you were able to see clearly and you were able to produce reality that is best case scenario for you. The good, acceptable, and even perfect will of God that you create through your own perception. Oh, you know what? I was going to do this. I'm going to do this on the way out. Charles, play me some music, if you would. If you, on your way out, if you want to be anointed, we're not going to do a line this way. You'll just come through, stand here, I'll anoint you, and you can just keep walking. You hear that? This is out of James chapter 5, anointing you with oil. Find me some meditation music.